Hello and welcome to the RYLACast, the official podcast of Camp RYLA, Rotary District 5810. My name is Greg Tepper. My co-host is the man they call Josie, Andrew Utz.
No, it's not.
Who's not here. No, it's not. If you listen to the end, this is like a real heat check on like who listened to the end of the last podcast. If you listen to the end of the last podcast, you know that we are forcing Josie into paternity leave. That's the only way to put it. The only like honest way to put it, as he and Joni are awaiting the birth of their second child. Hope everything's going great. Sounds last time I talked with Josie, everything was going great. So here's to everything continuing to go great. But I'm not doing the show by myself. Nobody wants that. And so we've gone to the bullpen. And we are pleased to be joined by our guest co-host for the evening, Becca Egger. Hi, Becca.
Hey, I feel like you were trying to think of a joke name there for a second, but then you just went with my actual name.
I mean, I could have thought of a joke name because I think I've had you booked for this thing for 2 weeks, and I didn't think of it in the 2 weeks leading up to this moment, so might as well let that pitch pass. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. I'm super psyched to be here.
I believe this is you now rank third on the list of most appearances on the RYLACast.
My goal in life is always to be third on the list, so I'm thrilled.
You're a two-time guest and now a one-time host. This is like
that's pretty good.
We're gonna get you a letter jacket. It's gonna be great.
That
feels like a RYLA letter jacket would be really appropriate.
Yeah. And a group of high achievers. Let's make it permanent, invisible. Nothing unhealthy could happen here.
What could possibly go wrong? Not a single thing. Not a single thing. This is the RYLACast, the official podcast of Camp RYLA, Rotary District 5810. We do thank you for spending part of your day with us. Coming up here in just a little bit, we are going to be joined by a guest that, and I'm just, as you know on this podcast, there's just no secrets about the production. A guest that Becca Egger booked. We're going to be joined by Adam Waddell.
I'm so excited.
This is a really big get for our podcast. So thank you for bringing some star power.
For real. Like he is probably pulling at least 70-hour work weeks right now. And he rearranged one thing, asked for one negotiation, and we got him. Yeah.
Which feels like we got off easy on this one.
Yeah, so, it was a huge win.
We will be joined by Adam Waddell coming up here in just a little bit. An update before we get into the meat of this podcast. The last time we were on this podcast, we were essentially badgering you for money for in North Texas Giving Day. RYLA set a pretty aggressive goal. The RYLA 5810 Foundation set a pretty aggressive goal of $15,000, I believe it was.
That's what we did.
And guess what?
Tell me.
We got the dang thing. We got the dang thing.
It's really here's where we're definitely losing having Josie here, because like as someone who for years is like toted around really heavy speakers and things like this, like I think that like I'm really hoping he and a few others directly feel the impact of this, or whatever the negative of like whatever you don't feel the weight of something anymore, whatever the lessening of that is. Like I want him here celebrating with this, but he's doing better things. So these funds will go towards real, tangible, visible, like we'll be able to point to them. Type improvements for the program, not just at camp, but year round, and the stuff that we do. Because I know we've got stuff going on all year round, and this your generosity and your willingness to help out the RYLA 5810 Foundation. Your dollar will go a long way. That is a RYLACast promise. Absolutely. I think that, like, honestly, under the helm specifically of Dana, I think we have a really powerful and unique cocktail of extreme frugality and extreme generosity. And those kind of operate in different columns. And the frugality around finances, it's a pretty firm commitment.
and then the generosity and resources and in inclusivity and that kind of a thing. It's like they go hand in hand.
As I've gotten more and more involved in the RYLA program and like dug deeper and peeked behind more curtains and stuff, what you will realize, and I hope people will believe me when I say this, is that the people that are going to be in charge of dispersing these funds are exceptional stewards of your money. Exceptional stewards of your money.
Next time you see Dana, if this goes out to anybody, ask him what the maximum he will pay for a pizza is, because it's a smaller number than you think, and he know.
Ooh.
It's a firm number.
It's like it doesn't adjust for inflation.
Josie knows what it is. I don't remember, but I promise you, Josie and Dana both know the number, and it's like, nope, call somewhere else. We can get it for cheaper.
That rocks. That rocks. As somebody who, like the fourth date that I had with my wife, we got takeout pizza from Cece's. Yeah, respect. I think this is why Dana and I get along. All that is to say, thank you so much for your generosity and for making North Texas Giving Day such a rousing success for the RYLA 5810 Foundation. And now on to the main event, because one of the great things about having a guest host is that we kind of get to turn over the whole shebang over to our esteemed guest host. And so I am so pleased to say, hey, Becca, what do you got to tell us this week?
Well, I've got a question you're going to be involved. You ready?
Okay. I'm ready to be involved.
Okay. You're very willing, despite knowing not what's going to happen next. Okay. What are your favorite self-care practices?
I like reading. I like spending intentional time alone, which is harder and harder all the time. But exercising, and then most recently I have started doing small meditations, like 10 minutes at a time. They're not a sponsor, although if they'd like to sponsor this podcast, we're happy to invoice you. The Calm app I've gotten into, and they've got like the daily kind of meditation thing. It takes about 10 minutes, and it's a nice way of practicing self-care. So that's what I do.
That's cool. Very nice. All right. I like that. I think whenever the topic comes up more like maybe like a mainstream online social media conversation, it's also going to include things like, and this may be like pretty category specific, like a type of person, but bubble baths and paint, like getting a pedicure, a massage, or like things like this. Right. So
you've met my wife. She falls in that category.
And I have always had I don't know, I've always felt like there was something like missing there. And I've come into a notice recently. So I want to share my notice. So, okay. Whenever you decide it's time to go for a run, or you're like, whatever, you're like, I'm going to read, I'm going to be by myself, whatever. What are you addressing? Why are you choosing to care for yourself? What are you noticing?
I think the answer is probably that I'm just noticing stress. Maybe the word is imbalance. You know what I mean? Of like, I feel like maybe I'm tilting too far to one side and focusing too much on one thing. And so I would say that those types of things help to recenter me and to give me an opportunity to make a mental list of the things that are important and the things that are not, to reprioritize. Let's say that.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so I heard like stress, off balance, maybe in priorities, that kind of a thing. Yes, 10-4. I resonate, however that word works. But so I'm singing through this and like, yes, same. And I'm like, it feels like treating symptoms though sometimes, right? It's like stress is like a symptom of being alive, maybe even, and like it's probably not going to go away. And it makes sense to address it. It makes sense to care for ourselves by addressing stress or addressing imbalance or whatever. And at the same time, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm putting a Band-Aid on like a surgical wound that needs something, like needs a different type of care, like needs like maybe even a deeper type of care. It's like, wait, this level of stress like keeps coming up, and like a pedicure isn't cutting it. Or like I went for a run and it helped for an hour and then I was right back in it, right? Like sometimes it's like, or maybe even often it's like, okay, am I treating the symptom or am I treating the issue? No problem with either one. There's just two different things. And so I was reading a book here recently, and the thing that I was trying to say, if I was going to say the name of the book, I'll save it for right now. I was reading a book, and it was proposed that one of the greatest forms of self-care is integrity. I think for the audience who can't see, Greg has on his thinking face. So
I cocked my head to the side. I went,
Tell me more. All right. So the what's being proposed here, and that I'm peek behind the curtain, I'm finding a lot of value here, is not integrity, like the moral or ethical definition. Those are great definitions, not the definition I'm talking about here. So we're talking about, and this pertains to us as leaders, especially leaders who are consciously engaging in our leadership, taking great care of ourselves, using the definition of integrity, like a bridge has structural integrity, a building has structural integrity. The chair I'm sitting on, and it does what it says it will do. And so like this chair, I trust it to hold my weight, and is doing what it says it will do. It's doing its job. It's doing what it says it will do when I expect it to. So then taking that definition to myself, my integrity, do I do what I say I will do when I say I will do it? And that's like, we'd say that's level one. And like level two is, and then when I don't, or when I realize I'm not going to, do I own it and tell the people who need to know as soon as I realize that I'm out of integrity? And then like the third step of, and then do I clean up the mess and restore trust? So like I've noticed, and with myself, have you ever, a really simplified version of this is like, are you a checklist person?
yes.
Yeah. Do you ever do the thing where you,
I aspire to be a checklist person every day. I'm a checklist person 60% of the time.
yeah. Do you ever do the thing where like life feels out of control? So you like maybe write down a few things you already did so you could check it off?
I will put some open goals on there as well.
Yes.
Like, where it's just like, oh, this is a layup. Like
I tied my shoes so good today.
Exactly right. Yeah. Put on clothes. Check.
Yeah. So like that is like not exactly the same thing, but I think underscores this like maybe even need that we have to be like, am I like, it gives me peace. It gives me trust in myself. It gives me trust in the systems I'm creating whenever I do what I said I would do. And whenever I don't, what do I have swirling over my head? Whenever I know that my email inbox is overloaded and I'm committed to not having an overloaded email inbox, you have a face on again.
Or feeling personally attacked because I'm looking at my email inbox.
Yes. Or I haven't returned a call, or I told so-and-so, I told Whiteman that I would schedule an email to her for the end of the month, and I didn't do it. And it was hanging over my head for about a week and a half. And I finally did it. And all of a sudden I had a huge life improvement. And I think it's the task, and it's truly is just like clearing our plate and clearing our heads, but it's also building up this trust within ourselves. For like, can I even do the things I say I will do? So my proposition here for this leadership 201, maybe even 301 thought of the day is, whenever we're engaging in self-care, absolutely treat the symptoms as is useful. The go for a run, read a book, get a pedicure, whatever it is. And also treating the root issue. Check out your integrity. See if you're doing what you said. See if I'm doing what I said I would do when I said I would do it. And not necessarily worrying about doing that perfectly, but honoring my word by being in the wrestle and cleaning up the mess and owning it whenever I slip up. What do you think about that?
I like that a lot. Do you ever feel like, do you ever have like a week or a 10-day stretch or 2-week stretch? I mean, who knows how long it'll last, of feeling like you're just in a mental fog, and like you recognize you're in a mental fog. You know that you're not working at full capacity, and there's like nothing you can do to shake it.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, because recently I had a bout of that for about 6 days. 6 days where head was just kind of in the clouds. And I recognized it and I knew it, and that stinks. It's not fun to know something's wrong and being like, do not know how to fix this. But to that point, what I ended up doing, probably just because I needed to do it, but also it ended up helping. I ended up knocking about 3 or 4 things off of my list that I needed to do, that I said I would do, that I felt as responsibilities. And suddenly, like, the clouds kind of lift, like the clouds kind of come on out. You're like, oh, wait a second. Like I'm back to operating close to full capacity at that point. And that's what you were saying is really, that's a good way of putting it, in the sense of, if I've got a headache, I can take something to fix my headache. But what if I just drank water throughout the day?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That would probably have a more more impactful result in my life. And I think would also, there are a lot of other residual effects of that that would make that better. That aside from not having a headache,
you create new symptoms for yourself.
Right? Because symptoms don't have to be bad.
Yeah, they're just signs of something else, right? Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And I love to, like, just like a little bonus feature. I feel like what I just heard you say is that you were like, maybe you felt in a fog, or felt like you were like pedaling your bike wheel, your bike pedals backwards. When I like, I'm spinning, but like it's not catching, I'm not going. And so you took ownership, is what it sounds like to me. And you say, okay, like the source, like, of all progress is some sort of action, and no one else is doing it for me. I'm going to try something. That feels resourceful to me. This is a little bonus nugget, Tepper.
Okay. Thanks, Becca. That was really good. You should host more often. I'll just leave.
There's cost and payoff to everything, so careful.
For who? Thank you, Becca. That was insightful and something that I'm going to be thinking about on my run tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
there you go.
Because also treating the symptoms is also relevant. It's not. It can be both. It's
not either or. Exactly right. Yeah. That's Becca Egger coming for both Josie and I's job here on the RYLACast. Now on to another person who may be coming for our job. I guess we'll find out together. Here's our conversation with Adam Waddell here on the RYLACast. Oh, Becca.
Hey, what's up?
I tasked you with booking a guest for this here episode of the RYLACast. And since it's your guest, do you want to introduce our guest?
I would love to do that. Okay, so the request was a home run, and I decided to one up that and find a grand slam. And so we have with us let's see. I'm going to get you to nod or shake your head if I'm right or wrong. A 2008 RYLA camper, a founding member of like the RYLA video series, I would say, and just one of my favorite people, objectively, subjectively, all the ways, Adam Waddell.
Yo, what's up, man? What an intro.
That was That was improv, guys.
That was way better than what I was gonna do. I was gonna be like,
Put
here's
2
Adam.
points on the scoreboard for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've been a founding member of anything, so that's good.
I think would you? But I think that's true. Do you think it's true?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
if I can give myself. Well, it's not John Warder deserves all the credit, but I was lucky enough to be a small part.
If you
this is going to be part of the story.
If you dig through all of the RYLA, the camp videos of yesteryear, Adam is you're a big player. You show up. You've got your SAG card in this. Like this is you're getting top billing in a lot of these.
Well, it's one of my favorite things we ever did, so I was glad to do it.
Well, let's start like we try to do here on the podcast, which is, would you mind telling folks your RYLA story as you would tell it?
Yeah, 100% would love to do that. Becca already beat me to a lot of it, so this will be just repetitive at this point. So the gist of my RYLA story is I'm a famous video guy. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, Camper in 2008, kind of did it on a whim. You know, I had a friend, I actually kind of had a crush on this girl. She did it before, the year before, was a year older, and was like, hey, you have fun at this thing, and I was things. So I said yes and applied and got in. And so, yeah, I did the camper thing in 2008, and then was an AC in 2009, and then just stayed on staff for the next probably 5-6 years. It feels like is what it was, and then the great date change. Date gate, whatever we want to call it, where it went from beginning of the summer to August. Was a conflict, and so I as it was with a few others. So when camp moved toward the end of summer, my involvement had to drop because of what I do for a career. I have not been as involved probably in the last 8 years or so, probably is what it's been. Feels like it's been forever. I mean, goodness gracious. Yeah. I am not as involved as I would like to be currently. But man, it is a huge part of my life and really who I am. You know, maybe not the biggest, okay to say, but it's huge. My best friends I met at RYLA. You know, so many names to name. I don't want to. I mean, I can plug names. I'm looking at 2 of them right here. The Eggers are one of my favorite families ever. John Warder's one of my best friends. Joni, Josie, Tevin, Brett, Jenny, all the Jennies. Some of the people who aren't around anymore, the Haleys and all these people that probably haven't been involved or haven't been around in a while. But man, it is a large portion of I think how I am made up.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, would you mind going back and touching on what you do for a living? And I think that if you don't mind, I think there's a way to weave it in to where like, I think it makes sense with like, not that like you did RYLA, so therefore you're doing what you do now, but like there's these like common denominators about who you are and what your values are. Can you kind of tell the story in a way that shows that to the audience?
No pressure. Yeah, we're not, we're just asking you to weave a narrative throughout the course of this podcast. That'd be great if you could.
Watch him. He can do it.
Yeah, Becca, to answer your question, I am an educator for work. That's what I do. So I teach, and I also every year continue to sign up to be a football coach in the state of Texas. And you both have great experience with football coaching at the high school level in Texas. And so y'all know what that life is like. And you know that there are ample opportunities for lots of things to go right, go wrong, whatever. But to say that RYLA did not have an impact would be completely incorrect. I think as I was searching for what it is I wanted to do, outside of a lot of prayer, for me personally, that's something that I spend a lot of time doing, or try to. I'm not perfect. I think how RYLA was helpful in that decision. I think number one, it eliminated fear that I had about, can I even impact young people? But then number two, I think just the support that I got from all the best friends I was talking about earlier, to go out and do that and to be affirmed in that skill set, just gave me the confidence to move forward, after graduating college. And so I walked into the classroom and had that confidence to do that, to be an educator, to be a teacher. I had a lot of teacher friends who were RYLArians that were instrumental in that. Becca, Jeff. And so, yeah, that's what I do. And I carry RYLA with me every day. In a lot of ways, I get to do that. I get to carry RYLA with me.
So I don't want to blow up your spot here, but speaking as somebody who does work also in the high school football space, you, much like Becca's community as well, you operate in a community and a coaching staff that has, in my experience with them, very high expectations and a very the track record is very good. They're only, if you want to look this up, they're the only program to win 5 state championships in a row at one point. So how do you navigate those waters walking into a situation that is, let's be honest, like the expectations there are extremely high, and I'm interested in how you navigate those type of expectations.
I think for listeners, I work at Lake Travis, and so if you,
I didn't know,
yeah, I'll throw it out there. It's good. I work at Lake Travis High School, and so if you are, Greg is right. If you're familiar with Texas high school football, you've probably heard of them. And so that's a great question. I think how I would answer that question is every day I've got to walk into the office and remember really one thing, that it's not about me. That program was very successful before I got there. We are pretty good right now, and it will continue to be successful, if I were to go somewhere else. And so I think the number one lesson I've got to remind myself, the number one thing I got to remind myself there, Tep, is that it's not about me. Right. The expectations are high regardless of what I bring to the table or not. I'm grateful that I come in having high expectations too, for myself, for our kids, for our staff. But if I ever turn it inward, then I think things would go poorly. And so I'm able to kind of step back when I can remember that the program is bigger than me. And that's something too, I don't want to turn this into like a Texas high school football interview, but Hank Carter, he preaches that to the kids all the time, and so it's helpful to have a leader who sits in the chair, who says the same thing, and so, and I think I'm grateful to RYLA because that was probably the first place that I can really pinpoint where I was faced with the fact that it is not about me. Like nothing is. And there's like this freeing surrender to that, and so it's, I'm grateful for it, and when I was on staff at RYLA, I struggled with that big time. There's only a few people I've probably talked to about this. But every time I would be on staff, what I was looking for was to get my name on one of those plaques, the leadership award, the service award. And I never did. And that's cool. Like, I'm okay with that. But back then I was not okay with that. I was pretty selfish and really prideful, and had to really kind of turn inward, so to speak, and realize that it's not about me. And so I'm grateful for that lesson, because I take that. I take that into the office every day. I try to preach that to our kids, that humility is what is going to, those who humble themselves will be exalted. That comes from the Bible, and that's a book I really believe in. And so I try to do that. And RYLA taught me that at first, and RYLA continued to teach me that. And my work continued to teach me that. And so I think the correlation between what I learned as a RYLArian, what I learned currently as a RYLArian, and as a coach and teacher is a huge correlation.
Yeah, that what I hear partially in that, at least, is, and maybe that's just the way that my ears are hearing it, is like what do I want for instead of what do I want from? That feels like a posture of generosity that that I'm imagining that's like, is the way you're telling the story. I'm like, oh, I have an assumption that that's now a core pillar of Adam Waddell, Coach Waddell's leadership style, is a forness rather than a fromness. And I'm committed to believing that. So don't tell me otherwise. I have a follow-up question, just kind of like in like your career. Not every coach, but a lot of coaches are uniquely positioned that y'all end up working with a lot of leaders. There's a lot of job shifting in your profession, and I think you've experienced some of that. You've worked under a lot of different, maybe not a lot, that's not totally fair. A lot, it's a subjective word, but you've worked under a good handful of leaders. What are, without getting into the weeds, what are some other maybe, like pillars of your leadership that like you've picked up along the way, like in your adult life? And as you said, like continuing to be a RYLArian and being that curious person as you go into these work situations.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so the service above self, I think that's on the RYLA website, and I think that probably alludes to what I was talking about earlier. So that's kind of what I hope to lead with, is that I am a servant first. And so, yeah, working for a bunch of different leaders, I've had the opportunity to do that in a lot of different ways, and I think what's cool, and something that I do think that RYLA, it's hard to hit on that, hard to hit on this in 5-6 days, but at camp is what I mean there. Like you will be under different umbrellas as whether it's an employee, a member of an organization, whatever it is, and so if you're, a lot of times those leadership styles are different, and you have to adapt. Some coaches I have worked under wanted me to be how would I word this? Like a go-getter, right? See work. If the toilet needs to be cleaned, to clean it. You're not the custodian, but that's the type of servant leadership that particular leader wanted. I work for guys that were just football guys who were like, I really don't care about the other duties as assigned. What kind of football do you know? And so being able to adapt, I think, is something that I have tried to sharpen in my leadership skills, and then I really tried to, regardless of who I am under, and it has been a lot, you can say that it's been a lot, it's been too many, and that's my fault, nobody else's, is holding strong to like personal conviction. Again, not getting into weeds, and I will not drop names, but sometimes personal conviction cannot be as important to some as it is to others. And so I think having a good sense of where your morals lie, how are you grounded, when it comes to your leadership style, and what are those things, and for other people, I mean, for everybody, it may be different, but what are those things that you will hold fast to when chaos ensues? Because it will ensue. And you're going to have to be prepared somehow to deal with it. And so I think if, for me, being grounded in my personal conviction, my morals, what those have become, helps me to kind of be steady in that chaos.
It's a District 26 6A showdown between Austin Del Valle and Lake Travis, 7:30 p.m. Friday night at Veterans Stadium. We'll go through the two deep real quick. I'm kidding. We can if you want. I have my own take.
I'll not do that.
Okay. All right. Fine.
Watch Texan Live.
Now this guy gets it. This guy, man. Oh, that's right. Dave Campbell's Texan Live. You can subscribe at texasfootball.com. Okay. Before we let you go, we want to make sure we give you an opportunity. You've been so generous with your time. We want to give you an opportunity to plug something. If there's something you're passionate about, you want theoretically the whole world to hear about. This podcast is available everywhere. So the floor is yours, Adam Waddell.
Yeah, that is that's an immense pressure.
Again, no pressure. Yeah.
Yeah. Just because you say no pressure doesn't mean it goes away. Right? It's like when you tell
I know what I'm doing,
and then offend them. Well, outside of plugging Texan Live and Valley Sports Southwest, and
this is great. I'm loving
TexasFootball.com.
Thank you.
And my boy Tepper. Make sure you're tuning in. He spits gold.
Please don't.
Too late. I've already done it. Have to edit it out. I'll plug a snack I've been eating recently.
I'm so ready. I'm really intrigued.
And these are new in our house, but maybe these have been around forever. I don't know. We love Nutella. And at Costco, there are now these like wafer bars. No joke. They might be like a normal candy bar size, I guess. Maybe a little smaller than that. But it's wafer, and it's filled with Nutella.
It's
like the little, like I'm thinking of like when I was a kid, there was like white ones and like strawberry ones, like that kind of a thing, like a little. I'm not describing that. I'm thinking of like wafers with like a little.
One of those like Pocky sticks or whatever. No, this is like a legit.
Okay.
Like a candy, like a Nutella candy bar, basically.
Yeah, well, it's not a candy bar. Like I don't know if I would call it that. It's more like
Nutella wafer bar. I'm writing this down.
Yeah, Nutella. I don't know. I'd have to like.
Costco.
It's delicious. That's all. I'll plug that. It's so good. They're so good.
Okay. We're googling this. We're gonna see if we can come up with something.
Is it Nutella Be Ready?
Ooh, it might be Nutella Be Ready.
If so, they have them at Target also.
See, that's the thing, is that they give them like an active name to hide the fact that you're eating Nutella. That's how they get
it. It looks really good.
It's delicious. If you're a Nutella fan, those are legit.
Okay. Okay. Adam Waddell, we appreciate your time. I know you've been up since Dark 30, so we'll let you get to bed. But thanks for spending some time with us on the RYLACast.
Man, I'm grateful to have the opportunity. Thanks for thinking of me.
And our thanks once again to Adam Waddell, our guest here on the RYLACast. We should just pretend that like we know how that like we did this in a sequential order, and so like we know that it was a great interview. You know what I mean?
know it's gonna be in the past incredible.
It was a spectacular interview. I can't believe he said that.
Still running high.
It's amazing. Okay, it's my time to bring us home to round third and head home, to use another sports analogy, which is apparently the only clubs I have in my bag, which is also a sports analogy. I would like to share a quote. Are you a quote person? Like, there are people who I think are quote people, and there are people who are not quote people. Are you a quote person?
I oscillate. I am currently a quote person.
You're currently a quote person. Do you have any quotes like around you at the moment?
No, I don't like word art.
You don't like word art?
I like picture art.
Okay. No word art in your world.
Sorry, this is like not relevant to what you're saying. Please continue.
No, I want to know all about your artistic decisions there in the Egger household. I'm sure Jeff has a big say in it too. I am a quote person, and what I tend to do is when I find, but I'm very picky about quotes. Like I don't want like 700 of them. I want like 3 good ones, like that I can go back to and I can feel like I am like are relevant in a variety of different ways. And so I realized as I was preparing for the show earlier this afternoon, I realized, hey, I don't think I've shared one of my favorite quotes, which is written on my desk. I have 3. There are 3 quotes written on my desk. And I think that I think one of them I haven't shared on this podcast, so I might as well do it because I think about it a lot.
So I am
okay.
I would like to guess, but that feels silly. So I'm ready.
It is a quote by a gentleman named Robert Fitzgerald Diggs. Robert Fitzgerald Diggs is better known as the RZA from Wu-Tang Clan, which is a rap collective from New York City, the greatest rap collective of all time. They have a lot of great albums. I won't. Becca is nodding like in the way of like, yep, you're saying words to me. But he is known as like the philosopher and like the leader of the group. And they're very, one of the things I've always been drawn to about their music is that they're very thoughtful and they're very, very, there's a lot of deeper meaning to their stuff. They even put out like a whole, like they've got a title like Japanese culture. Like they've kind of put some things together with that. They've put out like a Tao of the Wu-Tang Clan stuff. It's like a whole thing. But he had a quote that I come back to a lot that's written on my desk because I reminded myself often, which is that it's harder to make the glass than to break the glass. It's harder to make the glass than to break the glass. And here in this leadership podcast, I think it is there's an important centering conversation to be had about your actions as to whether or not your actions are working towards making glass or breaking glass. Because now that's not to say that there's never a time to break glass.
Sure.
Certainly that needs to be done at times. But I think your job as a leader is to help people along the harder journey of building something positive and making something there, as opposed to the short-term, perhaps even immediate satisfaction of breaking the glass. That might be easier, and it might be the shortcut that you're looking for. But is that exactly what is going to be best for everybody involved? I read that at work, we had a particularly like long meeting about a lot of different high level things. And I came back like a little, whenever you're sitting in a meeting for too long, come back a little frustrated. And I read that. Yeah. And I read that quote and I was like, all right, what are you doing today with what you just came out of? What are you going to do to make sure that your efforts are going towards making glass as opposed to breaking it? So I thought about that and I realized I hadn't told that on the podcast. So there we go. I did it. Now I have to put other quotes on my desk so that I'll look at them often.
Yeah. That like the thing that there's probably, as many angles to that as there are, surfaces on a diamond or whatever. But the one that like I think of immediately is like relationships in the middle of hard things. So like work relationships or personal or whatever they are RYLA relationships, and I don't mean personal RYLA, I mean like while we're at camp or while we're at an event. Like whenever like the pressure builds and there's something challenging going on or maybe let's say even a disagreement, and it's like, okay, do we want to make glass here? Do we want to break it? Even thinking about like the secondary and tertiary things, like how we're going to relate to each other when this is over.
Because it's
can we handle this in a way that strengthens our relationship instead of weakening it?
Because I think it's helpful for me to think of the inverse of this quote too, which is that it's easier to break the glass than to make it. Do you know what I mean? Like, because it is. And oftentimes that is a very tempting option of like, I could do this, but are you going to be stronger for it? Or is it like, again, there's times to do it, but is the net going to be a positive? Is that going to be working towards a greater good and a greater strength of yourself, of your group, of the world, if you want to get big. So anyway, I was thinking about that this week, and I wanted to make sure I shared it on this podcast because they gave me a microphone, and so I did it.
I'm glad you did. I think that was very cool.
And they gave you a microphone, and we had you use it on this podcast. How do you think this went?
I think this was pretty fantastic. I had a good time, and that's pretty much my bottom line. So
okay, that's great. Would you recommend hosting the RYLACast to a friend?
Absolutely.
Okay.
10 out of 10.
Okay, that's good. That is going to do it for us. We do thank you. Well, we want to thank Adam Waddell again for being our guest. We want to ask you to please, if you like this podcast, please rate, subscribe, and tell a friend. Joe, this is the moment where Josie would come up with an antiquated way of telling a friend about the RYLACast. Do you happen to have an antiquated way of telling a friend about the RYLACast?
An antiquated way of telling a friend about the RYLACast. I would say, oh man, the one I'm thinking of is okay,
there are no wrong answers here.
There are no wrong answers. I'm thinking of my friends from high school who like got tattoos at home. You know what I mean? Like you could do a homemade tattoo, but I don't think that's what I'm not going to carry that one out. So I'm just going to say, no, I can't think of a way. We'll wait for Josie.
Just tell a friend about the RYLACast.
Use your mouth.
Yeah. Becca, thanks for your courage.
Thank you for your courage. Appreciate you.
Talk to you next time on the RYLACast.